Well, yeah, of course there are. Um, you want to get rid of the nightshades, the tomatoes, potatoes, eggplants, peppers, those sorts of things. Get rid of all seeds and beans and nuts and legumes and all that sort of stuff, because those are all all seeds are plants' babies, and everything protects its baby more than anything. So the seed is often where you find the highest concentration of toxins. So getting rid of all those sorts of things. And then you want to try to get things that are lower in oxalate, right? And so if you can go online and see like different sort of oxalate, you know, uh, the amount of oxalates that are in certain plants, and just try to aim for less than 100 milligrams of oxalates a day in your diet. And main thing is just focus on meat, focus on animal fat, cut out the carbs and sugar and alcohol, cut out the nightshades, and then what other and eat the meat first. That's actually important. I was talking to Dr. Casey Means, who's a Stanford trained doctor. She does a lot of metabolic health, has a company called Levels. We had a very interesting conversation yesterday. But what she was saying, there were studies showing that if just the order of how you eat things can actually affect your blood sugar spikes and your insulin secretion. So if you're eating a steak and a salad and a potato, if you eat the potato first and the salad and then the meat, you'll actually get a much greater spike and drop in your blood sugar and your insulin. And if you eat the steak first and then the salad as a buffer and then eat the carbs, it's a much more mellow hill and spike and all that sort of stuff. So it's not as big dramatic spikes and troughs and things like that. You're eating the exact same stuff, you're just doing it in a different way. And then going for a walk for 20, 30 minutes afterwards, and walking multiple times a day for just a minute or two. It makes a big difference. And so, you can do these little things, they all add up. And so eat a lot of meat, fatty meat, eat it first, and then cut out the carbs, sugar, seed oils, 100%. And then the nightshades, seeds, beans, nuts, legumes, all that sort of stuff if you can. Then of the vegetables that are sort of left, just mix them up and change them around. You don't want to be eating a lot of the same thing over and over and over and over again, because they all have different plant toxins that your body has to detoxify. And we are able to detoxify a lot of these things to a certain extent, but we can overwhelm our detoxification mechanisms. And so you just switch it up. So you have different different plants that you're eating. If you're going to eat those things, just switch them up, mix them up, and don't eat the same ones every day. You can eat the same meat every day. You can't eat the same plants every day. So that's what I would do anyway, if you can get them to do that. The Inuit, when in doubt, think of the Inuit. They're in the Arctic Circle. They don't have access to plants, even if they wanted to eat them. And so, you do not have to eat these things. And so the Inuit or anyone else living throughout in those similar conditions during the ice ages. I mean, the last 2.5 million years we've been plagued with ice. We're really in an ice age still. That's why we have polar ice caps. We didn't actually have polar ice caps 2.5 million years ago. Fun fact. So, for the vast majority of the Earth's existence and for life on Earth, no ice caps. We're in an ice age. We're just in ebbs and flows of that ice age. And during the flows of that ice age, there's no plants available. Now, some people will try and mislead you and just make things up and say, well, when the ice was coming down, everyone migrated towards the equator. No, they didn't. You talk to archaeologists, paleoanthropologists like Dr. Bill Schindler, is professor at University of Maryland, and since retired, and he says that no, actually, the fossil record is very clear that when the ice shelf started coming down, Homo habilis and our ancestors started moving up into the ice, right? Because that's where the megafauna was. So no, we were not eating plants. And maybe some people were in some conditions somewhere. I don't think it's what would have been best for them. But in many areas and many times, and certainly during the ice ages in the Arctic Circle, there is nothing to eat except meat. And so they were, yes, exclusively eating meat. They didn't eat vegetables. Therefore, you don't need vegetables, because you can't live generationally like that if you're missing out on nutrients. You especially can't grow and have your brain grow at an exponential rate and your body grow dramatically if it's not ideal for you. And then the agricultural revolution comes around, we start eating more plants, bang, immediately 10,000 years ago, the fossil record shows that we went from being much taller to shrinking 5 inches, brains shrinking 11%, our teeth getting mangled and mushed together, and smaller jaw sizes, much of dental caries and cavities and rotting teeth, and shorter femurs, which is a sign of malnutrition, and signs of tuberculosis in the spine. Those are all signs of malnutrition. And so, that has been written about and shown evidence for since we started discovering these sorts of things. So, and that's that's coming directly from a textbook from Oxford. So like this is just a fact. When we started eating plants, our health suffered, our development suffered, our brains got smaller, our bodies got smaller, our teeth got crowded and crooked. That's purely nutritional and developmental. And so, no, you don't need vegetables. You definitely don't need vegetables. I haven't eaten a vegetable in 6 years. Maggie, the rancher, hasn't eaten in over 65 years. And the Inuit, when eating a traditional diet, don't eat it at all. Say, well, they eat the stomach contents of the animals they eat. Yeah, they eat seals. Seals are carnivores. What's in their stomach is fish. Well, they eat polar bear too. In the stomach of polar bear are seals, right? So it's it's double meated in goodness. So no, you don't need vegetables. Yeah. So, I mean, the thing is that, so the thing is when I was talking so he's referring to Paul Saladino, we just had a podcast to come out. We had a very poor internet connection. And so it was very difficult to sort of have a fluid conversation. But yeah, when he was saying that, I may not have fully gotten this across, but regardless of whether anyone's in ketosis, they're still just eating meat. And that's my point. My point is not that we need to be in ketosis all the time, but we need to be eating meat. And I don't think we need to eat anything else. And so, if Dr. Saladino is saying, well, we need some carbs, and he's showing that the Inuit can get those carbs from meat, why do we need to eat anything else except meat, right? So my point is that we need to eat meat, and we should eat meat, and we do optimally just on meat, and we get some glycogen from that. Fantastic. It is the case that you likely are not in ketosis all the time, is that your blood sugar comes up a little bit and your insulin comes up a little bit, and you sort of transiently come out of ketosis. But the thing is too is that how are we basing and judging the fact that the Inuit are not in ketosis, because their ketone level is fairly low, and so we're saying, oh, they're not in ketosis anymore. But Professor Ben Bickman and Professor D'Agostino have shown and discussed and demonstrated that when you're on a ketogenic diet long term, you become more efficient at using your ketones. So at first you fast, or you go on a keto, or you drop carbs, your ketones go up. This is probably because you're not as efficient and effective at using your ketones, and then it actually starts coming down. Why is that? Because now you're able to utilize those ketones more effectively and efficiently. This can take months before you're really adapted to this. This is called keto adaptation or fat adaptation. And so when you are keto adapted, fat adapted, your ketone levels are much, much lower, and they maintain at a low level as well. So are you not in ketosis anymore? I would contend that you are, because what ketosis is a metabolic state where you can mobilize your fat stores and make ketones and make blood sugar and make glycogen, and you're not beholden to the carbohydrates that you eat. So if the Inuit were only getting their blood sugar and glycogen from the glycogen that they eat, and all that fat and protein was just going into their fat cells, I don't think that really follows, because they're not getting fat. They're not having, insulin resistance and all these other sorts of things. And they're able to maintain their blood sugar and glycogen. They're not getting these ups and downs and ups and downs and ups and downs. So I from my definition, I would say that they are still in ketosis. It's just that they don't have very high elevated ketones. Either way, it's academic. They survive and thrive only eating meat, right? And so that's my argument, is that we can survive and thrive and do the best only eating meat. And if that means that we get a bit of glycogen from it and that's good for us, great. I'm happy with that. I don't care. All I care about is that people do what's biologically appropriate for them and they're as healthy as they possibly can be. And I think that comes from just eating meat. I don't think we need to take on excess carbohydrates outside of the glycogen that we get from meat. Oh no, you can definitely do carnivore. The idea that a higher protein diet is bad for your kidneys is patently false. So that was a theory that sort of came up in like the 70s and 80s, and it just stuck around and didn't die. But the thing was, it was a theory. They thought that because this is good, you're going to be breaking off these nitrogen groups from your amino acids. You're going to have more of those. That turns into ammonia and then urea, and then your body has to clear that out, and so that's harder on your kidneys to do. No, it doesn't. If your urea goes up, we look at that and go, oh my goodness, the kidney function is going off. Well, not if your creatinine is still low. If your creatinine is still low, and and it will be if you're drinking enough water, then your kidneys are working just fine. It's just your urea is going up for another reason, which is it actually is beneficial to have higher urea, because urea is one of our body's best antioxidants. And so it's actually good to have that a bit up, right? And so it will be a little up, but your creatinine will be low, and that won't be a problem. So when people so a lot of things in medicine are like, we had a best guess, we had theory, and it said, hey, this is all we got. We don't have a proof one way, but I bet you it's probably something like this. That's what it shakes down to. And it may or may not be, but a lot of times it's not. And so when we do studies and we look at this, and we generally find that there's probably something else going on. And so that's what has been found. And so that's in the literature, and that's been published on and discussed on many different venues, where they said that it was actually more protein improves kidney function. And so that's what we see clinically as well. I mean, I see people constantly with CKD4, so chronic renal failure, stage 4. They improve, their kidney function improves, and they get better. So it's much better to actually eat a proper diet. And either way, regardless of her issues, she's still human, and so what is optimal for all humans is going to be optimal for her, especially in the sense that she has lower kidney function, or has only one kidney. You want to make sure that you're eating an actually appropriate diet, a biologically appropriate diet, because you make it easier on yourself than if you did anything else. So yeah, no, you can definitely do carnivore, and she'll do much better on carnivore than she would on anything else, just like everyone else. Oh, probably not. I mean, but that's something that you'd need to talk to your doctor about. If it depends on the cause of your stroke. I mean, there's different sorts of things, like if you have like atrial fibrillation and you sort of get like a little clots in the atrium, they flick those out. Like you do need to be on blood thinners. Sometimes you can have like an atrial ablation, where they sort of burn and scar certain areas on the inside of the heart that propagate these ectopic signals and cause that atrial fibrillation. And if you get an ablation, sometimes you can come off them there if you have fully stopped your atrial fibrillation. So it depends on the cause. There are a lot of different causes for stroke, and so if you have a clotting risk, that you are at risk of clotting and flicking off strokes, then blood thinner is probably a good idea. If you're feeling great and you and your doctor can address the underlying issues, then yeah, potentially. So, but it's very individual, so you have to be able to address the underlying issue. Like if you have atherosclerotic and you have these plaques that are sort of clotting off and breaking off and flicking off, aspirin's a good idea, so because you're going to less likely to have a platelet plug and a big blockage and flick off an embolism. If you've got atrial fibrillation, then being on warfarin or one of the the NOACs, the new anticoagulation agents, then and you address those underlying things. Your atherosclerosis is gone, your blockages are gone, or your atrial fibrillation is gone. Yeah, potentially, but carnivore is not going to undo all of that necessarily. I mean, the atherosclerosis, yeah, probably will go back the other way. Atrial fibrillation, some people improve, but often you need actual surgery for that, or you get an ablation of the atrial appendage. And so now, even if that does stop beating, well, there's nowhere for that clot to form anyway. So there are things that you can do, but they require serious interventions for that sort of thing. So it just depends, but you can work with your doctor, and either way, you're going to be much better off with a carnivore diet. Oh, so this is something that, well, look, it's individual, right? And so it depends on you, but it's great because you don't have to guess. You don't need a program. You don't need a calculator or a formula, right? And, if you need a calculator to figure out what you eat, you're probably eating the wrong thing, right? So animals in the wild, they just eat, and depending on what they're doing, they eat more, they eat less. And so if you are so you need to work out, you need to lift weights, you need to exert yourself maximally, and you need to, lift weights until muscle fatigue. You need to go to exhaustion. That's important. That's a really big, that's really important for stimulating muscle growth. And then you need to eat enough. And what is enough? Enough is as much as tastes good to you. So you keep eating fatty meat until it stops tasting good, and you try to do that twice a day at least. It may be fine to do it once a day, but you need to try it twice a day. And, if you're doing that and you're eating and you're getting enough food, and you just eat and tastes good, keep going until it's like, it doesn't really taste good anymore. Great. And then try that again later on in the day. Be mindful that if you do eat a big meal until you're full, you're going to feel tired. And so that tends to be best at the end of the day. So you just naturally chill out and rest and go to sleep. If you do that during the day or at breakfast, you're going to be tired during the day. So during the day, you might have to eat sort of a half meal, just take the edge off or something like that. And then later on, really, fill in the gaps and fill out all the corners. But that's it. It's totally individual. Like for me, if I'm just sedentary and having a normal day, I eat probably around 2.5 pounds of like ribeye, and with butter in it. And if I'm working out, if I'm lifting weights, it'll be easily double that. So it'll be 4.5 pounds. And if I do that, I put on muscle more easily than I ever have in my entire life. It's ridiculous. Ryan Talbot, who's a NCAA Division I All-American decathlete, 2-time All-American. He went carnivore halfway through his season, and his performance just took off. And at first, he wasn't eating enough. He was like losing too much weight. He's like, what am I doing? He's like, you need to eat more. You got to find more meal times to stick in there because he's just working out so much. And he was able to do that, and then got it down logistically. So he wasn't eating before he had a workout. So he'd be sort of, crapped out for it. But he found that eventually, after he figured that out, he was just like, yeah, I have to stop working out as much because like I'm just putting on too much muscle. I'm just getting too big. It's just like every college athlete would kill to have that problem, and he was just like, yeah, no, I can't work out as much. I've got to tone it back because he's just getting jacked because he's doing the decathlon, right? So he's doing pole vault, high jump, sprints, long jump, all these sorts of things, right? And so he needs to be a bit lighter. He needs to have that power to weight ratio balanced properly. And he can't just be like just a freaking tank, but that's where the direction he was going. So he actually had to work out less because he was putting on so much muscle. So that's how powerful this is. Like, and this is what all like Vince Gironda, Serge Nubret, and the golden era bodybuilders before the age of steroids. That's what they were doing: steak and eggs, steak and eggs, steak and eggs. They were getting bloody jacked. So that's what you do. Just work your ass off and eat a buttload of steak and eggs. Gironda was saying that if you ate something like 20 or 30 eggs a day, that was like the equivalent of doing low dose steroids. That there was serious anabolic effects to eggs, to eating at that level. So I don't know the veracity of that, but that's what he said in his writings.
I haven't been doing too much. I do like pull-ups and resistant bands, and my arms are getting really big, really quick. It's pretty awesome, and I'm hardly doing anything. But my question was going to be, you kind of mentioned this, but I don't know if I caught it. If I wanted to build like as much muscle as possible, is it lifting as heavy as possible, like just a few times, or lifting like medium, a bunch of reps?
More reps is fine. So look, if you're going for strength or you're going for hypertrophy, you sort of do different things. The classic paradigm is that if you do like lower reps but more weight, but you're always going to failure, right? So if you do as many as you can, but if it's 23, it's to failure. It's as many as you could do. And if you go up to, I'm going to do 20 of these, and you go to 20, but you just stop instead of being forced to stop, you didn't finish, right? So I consider that, Muhammad Ali once said, they asked him, well, how many reps of these different things do you do? And he's like, I have no idea. I don't count that. I work to get myself exhausted. And then when I get tired, then I start counting to see how many I can do after I want to stop. Right. And so you just keep going until you can't go anymore. And if you have a spotter, even better. You keep going past the point that you can't go anymore. And you really just wear out, those muscles. And that's how you stimulate this. So I've spoken to bodybuilders and bodybuilder coaches, and they think that actually for physique anyway, that the 15 rep range is ideal. And so that's where they're getting the best hypertrophy and the best muscle definition. And also it's best on your joints. So if you're doing very high weight, low rep, like you're doing like 1 rep max, things like that, very hard on your joints. And so if you want to go for longevity as well as, getting your physique and strength and all that sort of stuff, then you definitely want to go to the 10 to 15 rep range. That's what I sort of aim for, 10 to 15.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, but it's always to failure.
Right.
It's always like I'm not doing anymore.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So if I'm aiming for 15, but like I keep going and I can do 30, okay, well then I finish off at 30 and I put up the weight,
Right. Okay.
Kerry, you're gonna look like Hulk Hogan, man. Just don't go too fast.
Right.
And one thing for you. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say too. Well, and for building muscle as well, one thing is that the eccentric motion. So the concentric is the contraction, right? You're contracting the muscle. That's a concentric movement, and then the eccentric is when you're sort of coming back down and the muscle is lengthening, right? If you're doing that under tension and under stress, and you're slowly doing that, what happens microscopically is you have these actin fibers that are just sort of bound to each other like this, and they have these little teeth, and they sort of move up and down like that, and you have just hundreds of these little things in each little cell, and it's called a sarcomere, is the muscle unit inside the cell. And so it's just like here, and then they do that, and that's how they contract the muscle. Okay, so if you have more of those on there, you get a stronger contraction. This is why a lot of sports teams now are saying don't stretch. It's actually a bad idea. If you stretch, you sort of pull that out, and now you have less of those actin fibers touching. And so when you contract, you get a weaker contraction instead of a whole bunch of them here, and then boom, you got all those actin fibers just smashing it all at once. And so, people can stretch sometimes if they want, but for like maximal, muscle priming and things like that, you want to prime up those muscles, get those actin fibers all locked, and then go and do your athletic event or your plyometrics or your whatever, your sprints. You don't want to stretch a whole bunch before you do that. And so if you're doing that eccentric, all of these things are bound on, and then you're lengthening it, but you've actually told them to not let go. So you're actually just microscopically, molecularly ripping those molecules apart and pulling it down. And that's why you get like, it's harder on your body and it takes longer to recover. But that's what stimulates bigger muscle fibers and bigger muscle growth. Now, you still get hypertrophy if you just do the concentric, right? And that will just tighten up the actin fibers. And this is why training for different things. If you're training for bulk and you're trying to build up the size of your muscle, You want to focus on that the eccentric side of things. So, you can sort of push out and then slow back down, right? And sometimes you can actually train that way. You can do eccentric overload, or if like you're doing pull-ups, you do as many pull-ups as you can, then you can't pull yourself up anymore. You go up on a step and you hold yourself there, and then you let yourself down slowly like that. And then you get back on the step and you do it again. And so you can actually do eccentric overload that way as well and get more bang for your buck. But if you just want your strength to weight ratio, then you just do the concentric. And then you just get stronger and stronger and stronger, but you're not actually bulking up. So you're getting stronger in relation to your weight. So you're staying the same weight, but you're getting stronger. And this is what you can do. This is what some coaches and trainers that get people ready for like the NFL Combine do, is they'll do like a hex bar deadlift, like the trap bar deadlift. And you do that and you stand up, and that's like that explosiveness out of the blocks as a runner or a sprinter. And then they just stand up and then they drop it. So they don't do the eccentric. So they're not ripping apart that muscle. And then they stand up with it, drop it, stand up with it, drop it, stand up with it, drop it. And by doing that, you're not breaking down the muscle tissue. So you can do it more often because you recover quicker and your strength goes up, but your weight doesn't go up as much, nearly as much, even if much at all. And so you get more toned and more strong, but you don't get the breakdown and then the rebuild at bigger hypertrophy. So, and it also tunes up those actin fibers so that they're primed and ready to go. And so he found that if you did, 4 or 5 sets of, 5 or 6 rep range, concentric trap bar deadlifts, and then go and run your 40, you'll drop like 0.3 seconds off your 40 time just by doing that, just by priming your muscles, And so, yeah, he was doing crazy shit. He was all about that strength to weight ratio and getting those actin fibers primed up. And so he had a guy who was like a quarterback. It dropped him from a 5.0 40 to a 4.5 40 in like 6-8 weeks or something like that. And he said 95% of what does that is the hex bar deadlift, the concentric hex bar deadlift.
Wow.
Betaine HCl, maybe. I mean, I never used those supplements. I haven't really looked into them. Apple cider vinegar is not all that acidic. It's a pretty weak acid. It's not nearly as acidic as our stomach, or really shouldn't be. And unless you have a serious problem, but like our stomach pH is pretty damn low. I mean, if you're just not drinking water around meal times, that'll be better. So if you think you have a problem with that, just don't drink water for 2 hours before you eat, and then don't drink water during your meal, or really for a couple hours afterwards. Let it all digest, and so that'll keep it really concentrated. So less water you're drinking, and the longer you go without having drank water that day. I'm not saying you should, not drink water for days at a time, but if it's several hours and all that water is all worked through your system and been absorbed, it's just going to be a very concentrated stomach acid. So you don't have all that much acid in your stomach, like as a physical volume, and you'll secrete more when you eat food. But if you drink a bunch of water, if you drink 1 liter of water, 2 liters of water, you've just mixed that into 2 liters, 3 liters of water. So if anyone's in chemistry class and you have an acid that is pH whatever, and you put it in, and you put 20 mils of that, 30 mils of that into 2,000 mils, very dilute at that point, right? It changes the chemical nature of it. So if you think you have a problem with digestion, just avoid water for 2 hours before and after your meal, and get off medications that are going to depress that, like Tums and proton pump inhibitors and things like that. It's just stay away from those.
It's a lot.
So I think that's military time. So like 2,100 hours sort of.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah, and then 4,900 hours sort of extended fasting. So like for 2 days at a time, and then intermittent fasting, sort of eating once a day. So ghrelin is a hormone that's secreted by your stretch receptors in your stomach when your stomach's empty, and when they stretch out, then it releases leptin, and that sort of gives your brain an idea of if there's food or if there's something that needs to be done or whatever. No, you don't stop making ghrelin. You still make ghrelin. It's just that your body can actually you make more leptin from your fats fat tissue. And if your fat tissue is going out and getting to your hypothalamus, it doesn't matter that your ghrelin's there if your leptin is high enough. Now, the problem comes if you're eating carbohydrates, which raise your insulin, and insulin blocks leptin. So your brain doesn't think you have leptin, or maybe have a lot less leptin. So now your ghrelin being higher is much more noticeable. And they go, oh, Jesus, you need to eat. And lectins, as opposed to leptin, can block leptin as well. And so if you're getting rid of the plants, if you're getting rid of the carbs, then your leptin is free and clear and can go to your brain, and your brain says, great, we don't need to eat. And so that's why you don't feel hungry. That's why you don't feel hungry like you used to, because your hunger signals are now different. Before, you were getting a hunger signal that showed that your brain thought you had zero energy reserves because it couldn't see any leptin, and your ghrelin was raised, and your blood sugar is dropping, and it said, sweet Jesus, if you don't eat now, you're going to die. And this is why you panic eat multiple times a day. And so that's what's going on there. Now, people can stop making ghrelin. That's generally from surgery. So if people get like a stomach, bypass sort of sleeve or whatever, the different sorts of surgeries, like cut out part of the stomach. I don't do these surgeries, so I don't know all the specific names for all the different ones. But if you cut that out, you cut the part of the stomach out that makes ghrelin. And so now you can see the leptin, but you don't ever see the ghrelin. And so that people think that might be one of the reasons, a hormonal reason for weight loss as well, is they just don't feel as hungry, and they don't physically have as much room in their stomach as well. All you have to do is not eat carbs and lectins and other sorts of crap that you didn't evolve on, and you'll get a much better result in a much more healthy way without all the side effects from surgery, of which there are many. And even if surgery goes perfect and you lose a bunch of weight 10, 15 years down the road, you will have other problems that you will likely need surgery for. And that's something that we're seeing more and more and more of, since more and more people are getting these surgeries done. Well, that's really great. It's really great to hear that. We were just talking earlier about, the different sorts of, great stories that we've heard and seen, and people's recoveries. But that's my favorite one, and people just being healthier and feeling better, and getting a new lease on life, and being able to just experience life more and better and more healthy way, and having more energy and more, just when you're healthier and you feel better, you want to do more things and just live your life more, and you just enjoy your life more. And I think that's the best part. Yeah. Well, that's the thing, you're 3 months into it. And so you're just sort of in that sweet spot where you've gotten most of the junk out of your system. You started to see a lot of really good results, but you're just now getting to the point where you're just feeling amazing. Your mitochondria are working better. You got 4 times as many of them. They work 4 times as well. And your bodies are going to start feeling better and better and better. And you're just going to start seeing more and more results. So like it's really an exciting time. You guys are just going to feel better and better and better the further you go from here. So I'm excited for you. It's easy to do. Well, but the thing is, focus on the things that you've already benefited by, right? I mean, you've already just described to me a dozen different improvements in your life. So, that's probably more improvement than you've had in this length of time than ever before, right? And certainly most people would not have gotten those sorts of benefits in that short amount of time. So, just focus on that and realize just how well this is going. And, just because you didn't get exactly where you want to go into the end of your journey in 3 months, that's okay, because you will get there. You're well on your way. And you just enjoy the ride, enjoy feeling better every single day, enjoy all the different, improvements in your health. And, eventually you'll get there. You'll get to a steady state where your bodies are just happy where they are and where they want to be. And, but you'll feel better and better and better all the time until you get there. So just enjoy it. Yeah. Yeah, you definitely can. Yeah. So yeah, the weight is a tricky one, because you can, weight doesn't mean anything. What we want is fat loss. Right. We want muscle gain and bone density gain. And right. So bone and muscle are more dense than fat. And so a smaller volume of bone and muscle weigh more than an equal volume of fat, right? And so you can actually be different, and your body be changing dramatically, and your clothes fitting differently, and you feeling better, and your fat level going down, but your weight not changing. So when I just dropped vegetables, I was already not eating carbohydrates. I just dropped the vegetables and started eating a lot more meat, and dramatically increased the amount of calories I was eating. And I lost 23 pounds in 10 days, but then I stayed the exact same weight. I didn't lose an ounce for several months after that. And that's because I was working out and exercising heavily, and I was replacing the fat I was losing with the muscle I was gaining. And I was, and so my body composition changed dramatically. I was getting much more lean and strong and muscular, and but I weigh the exact same amount. So don't get too hung up on the scale and the weight, because that's not necessarily body composition, and that's really what we want. But that's secondary. Even body composition is secondary. What's most important is your overall health and how well you are. And so that's what you want to focus on: how you feel, how well you're doing, and your medical issues or lack thereof, which is the goal. And so if you're getting there, that's the most important thing. And then your body composition will come, and weight, just never worry about your weight, because that doesn't necessarily mean fat. And that's the thing, is that BMI is how we measure these sorts of things. It's a really bad metric because it doesn't take lean body mass into account. It doesn't take musculature into account. And so, I'm not even all that big, but I'm just in the range of obesity. So I just hit obesity according to my BMI. And, and like I'm, like 10% body fat. If I'm not working out, I'm 6% body fat if I am working out, and I weigh more with less body fat when I'm working out. So I'm obese. And so on the BMI, I meet that statistics of all these damn obese Americans, and 70% of Americans are overweight or obese, and 42% are obese. And so I've contributed to that obese statistic since I was 19, and so, and being a very lean athlete that whole time.
Yeah.
So it's not great, but, that's unfortunately sort of the metric that we use. But, and that's just another reason why, weight isn't something that we should worry all too much about. We should worry about body composition. We should worry about health. We should worry about how we feel. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. So, yeah.